Hi friends, if this is your first time on my channel, you are most definitely welcome. If you're a returning subscriber, what's good? What's good? What's good? What's good? What's good? So today, y'all know that there was no way this college admission scam was gonna happen and I wasn't gonna make a video about it because y'all know I got opinions. I got feelings and I'm mad. Like, literally, I am so mad about this whole situation and I want to fight somebody. Like, I really want to fight somebody. I want to put the paws on somebody because I think this is absolutely ridiculous, but I think it highlights a reality that has existed for a very long time, and I think it's important that we start to talk about it. So, if y'all want to know how I feel, let's get into the video. So earlier this week, the FBI indicted about 50 people over a college admission scam that ranged from year 2011 to 2019, and basically the charges include kind of parents basically paying this man named William Singer, who was like the founder of this like admission consulting type thing that, you know, the wealthy people use to help their children into college anyways. But basically he was running a whole like bribery scam where William, the ringleader, would pay off athletic coaches at elite schools to say that a student was a recruit when they weren't, or they would pay off college board proctors of the ACT. The ACT is not part of the college board, but the ACT and the SAT, where basically proctors would either change the answers of students' responses to the SAT exam, or they would get extended time and have to be in a private room because they had a learning disability that they didn't, or in some cases, like, the child's tutor was sitting in the SAT room with them, helping them answer the questions. And some of the people that were indicted include our dearest Aunt Becky from the Full House, and she was, I think, accused. I don't want to say accused because it did happen. It was found out that she and her husband had paid, I think, about $500,000 to get two of their children recruited to USC through the crew team, and these girls do not play crew at all. And basically her daughter is a YouTuber who, like, I guess beauty whatever, I never heard of her until this scam. And basically she had said in a video how she didn't really care for college and she was just gonna go, you know, for the social experience.
I don't know how much of school I'm gonna attend, but I'm gonna go in and talk to my deans and everyone and hope that I can try and balance it all. But I do want the experience of, like, game days, partying. I don't really care about school, as you guys all know.
The funniest part about this whole thing is that parent who was part of the bribery like ring was getting investigated or was being charged for like security fraud or something else. And I think to like have a more lenient sentence or to like come up with some kind of good plea deal, he tipped off the FBI to what was happening, and that's how they started the Operation Varsity Blues. So really be your own people that be exposing y'all. It's your own people. A lot of people are in trouble. Some of the schools involved were Stanford, Yale, USC, UCLA, Georgetown, I think, and some other elite schools. And basically a lot of coaches have been indicted, a lot of SAT, ACT proctors, parents, a lot of people are looking at some serious time in jail. And of course, Stanford being one of them, they released a response. They emailed all their students and alum, and I'm just going to talk about their response and my opinions about their responses. So basically they released like a frequently asked question because of course a lot of people are going to start saying like, was my admission process a fraud? Like, what are y'all really doing, Stanford? So they answered a whole bunch of questions, and I'm going to read a few, and I'm going to read bits and pieces of the answer just because it's long and I don't have time to go over everything. The first question was, what is Stanford doing in response to this revelation this week? They said that, first of all, Stanford's sailing head coach was a part of this bribery scam, and the moment he was indicted, Stanford was like, snip, snip, ho, you are fired. Like, Stanford does not affiliate themselves with any kind of like bribery scam, anything that looks unethical. They are quick to cut a nigga off, and that is what happened to our dear head coach of the sailing team. And basically they said that they're launching a internal investigation to make sure no other faculty or staff or anyone else is involved in any kind of bribery scam regarding the admission process. They're also trying to reroute the money that was sent to the sailing team because they're not trying to be spending or using no blood money. The sailing team was gifted $700,000, and now Stanford's trying to find a way to give that to somebody else that is not affiliated with Stanford. The next question was, how could Stanford not have known the fraudulent nature of these gifts? And they were like, this is an absolutely fair question. And they said that our process for reviewing gifts has rigorous checks and balances to prevent abuse. But the facts of this case are causing us to re-examine those checks and balances to determine what, if any, additional controls may be implemented to prevent such abuse in the future. Then the next question was the juicy question that everyone wants to know: how does the admission process work, including student athletes? Because I think that I'll only speak for myself, and I feel like there's been this general feeling of like student athletes are put on a pedestal more, and that the standards for getting into a school like Stanford for them are lowered because, you know, they can provide great quality to the school through their athletic abilities. Like, the Stanford football team is a pretty big deal, right? And Stanford loves having the title of, like, you know, Rose Bowl champions and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's always been thought that like Stanford athletes sometimes, but not all the time, didn't, you know, deserve to get into the school. And literally, I was talking to a student athlete one time, and he admitted to me that if not for the fact that he played football, he does not think he would have gotten into a school like Stanford. And I'm gonna just say that and leave that there. This came straight from his mouth and not mine. This is what Stanford said regarding this whole process. They were like, every student admitted to Stanford must meet the high academic standards. There are no exceptions. Our admission office conducts a holistic review of each applicant focused on academic excellence, intellectual vitality, extracurricular activities, and personal context. For students who have special talents, artistic, athletic, musical, or otherwise, those talents are factored into the process. In the case of athletics, we have a process through which coaches can identify the most promising athletic recruits who also have strong academic credentials for the consideration of the admission office. This athletic recommendation does not at all reserve a spot for an applicant to Stanford. It simply designates applicants who are judged by coaches to be competitive recruits. All applicants, including those recommended by coaches, must still meet Stanford's very high academic bar for admission. Do I think Stanford's telling the truth? No. 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 Hell no. Yeah, probably, of course. I think they are giving as much information as they can. But I do think, I personally feel differently, but if that's what they say, that's what they say, right? It is what it is. How do financial contributions to Stanford affect the admission process? We have many people, including alumni, who believe in Stanford's mission and support it with their contributions. But a donation does not purchase a place at Stanford, and we work very hard to ensure that prospective donors to Stanford understand this. The reality is, Stanford sends rejection letters to a vast majority of applicants, from families of alum and donors to the university. Admission to Stanford is highly competitive. Our admission office conducts a rigorous review of applicants, and we absolutely insist that every admitted student meets Stanford's academic standards. So yeah, that was Stanford's response, and basically the two people in question that the head sailing coach recommended for admission, one of them had been rejected from Stanford, and I think they were going to reapply but didn't, and the other never completed their application to Stanford. So luckily these students that their parents tried to bribe their way in are not at Stanford right now. So Stanford kind of lucked out in that sense, although I do feel like there's a bigger question of like, to what extent does your family's wealth help you get into school, right? Like, while Stanford says that, you know, donations do not secure a spot at school. I think to me, it's very hard to believe that if a family is donating to you billions of dollars and then their child applies to that school, you're not going to accept them. I find that very, very, very hard to believe, because you want that money to keep coming in. You want them to keep donating, and if accepting their student into the school means that they have more of a personal connection to the school, it's going to make them donate more. So I find it very, very hard to believe that, you know, they wouldn't accept a student whose parents is donating a large sum of money. And this happens all the time, and a lot of people were saying, well, how come these parents didn't do it the legal way? Just donate to the school. Like, you know, why you gotta go through this whole complicated, complex, bribe scheme thing? Just donate to the school, and that arguably would help your student's application just as much. So that was Stanford's response, and you know, I really, really do hope that this situation allows them to take a closer look at how they accept students and whether or not they are actually biased to people who have more money or bring athletic, you know, contribution or some kind of contribution to the table outside of their, you know, merit. And I think with this whole situation playing out, I think it brings up a huge issue of how a lot of people will be a lot of white people, I'll say, will be the first to feel salty or feel some kind of way when a person of color gets into an elite school. Their first place of target is, oh, affirmative action got you in, completely disregarding the fact that this student may have worked very, 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 very hard. And on a lot of videos I've posted in the past, I've had people say that my stats or the things I talk about that I think got me into Stanford don't make me stand out, and they've said that there's nothing really special about me, and that probably my race played more of a role in me getting in, other than my merit. And I'm just so happy something like this happened. So now every time someone says that, I have the perfect clap back. And the thing is, affirmative action, I think, plays a role in admission, period. I think it definitely it gives perspective. I think that there are systematically things in place to make it harder for people of color to succeed, period. Like, if you look at certain neighborhoods where they have a high rate of either crime or low-income families and stuff, the school districts in those places are not the best. And in return, you know, you may not get the best education before applying to school. So it's important to take into consideration context. And I think affirmative action is kind of putting a student in context of where they're coming from in their environment. And that's why I say, my SAT score, I don't think was as competitive, but when you put me in context with my environment, I probably got one of the higher SAT scores, to be honest. And there's so many people of color who have to work 100 times harder to prove ourselves to get into schools like this. And for people to downplay someone's merit and the hard work that they put in all 4 years is disrespectful. And for me, the comments like that have always pissed me off, because I saw my parents struggle to pay off loans. I saw my parents have to start over from scratch. My dad had a degree. He had a good paying job when he was in Nigeria. And when we came here, he had to redo his education all over again. Had to get a new degree all over again. Same thing for my mom. And they had to start from the bottom. So I've seen my parents struggle, and I told myself, ooh, I'm getting emotional, because y'all, this shit pisses me off. And I told myself from the moment I started high school, I said, I want to go to one of the best schools in the world, and I don't want to have to pay for it. That was a goal I set for myself, and I had to work so hard to get there. I had to make sure that my grades were the highest. If I got a low 90, if I got anything below a 95, I felt bad. I made myself feel bad, because I'm this is not acceptable. You need to be getting 95s or aboves on everything you do. Your grades, your tests, you need to make yourself stand out. You have to do stuff. I worked my butt off in college. In college, yes, but I worked my butt off in high school just so I can have options, so I can go to a school that I knew would provide me with adequate financial aid where I would not have loans. And I worked hard. Even my senior year, even with the idea of I'd probably get merit-based scholarship and need-based scholarship, I applied to so many outside scholarships because I did not want to have to pay for school. I worked hard, I hustled, and there's so many other people like me who did the same and got rejected for someone else whose parents paid their way into college. And I'm just gonna let that sink in. And that shit pisses me off. And like literally, my sister just got into some colleges, and like this girl's a hard worker. Like, she works so hard, and some of the stuff she does and did in high school, I'm like, damn, in some ways you are a much better applicant than I ever was, you know? And she just hurried back from Chicago, and you know, she got in, and that was like one of her top choice schools. And like, she worked hard for that spot, you know? She worked very, very hard, and she made herself stand out. And it pisses me off. It makes me very, very angry when people who have worked all their life to get ahead are still set back because people in high positions, people with money, are buying their way into success. Point blank, period. And it's not okay. And I think that admission offices need to do better. They need to do better, and they need to make sure that they have checks and balances in place, that something like this does not happen again. Because it's unfair to the people who work so hard to even have a chance at elite schools. Point blank, period. I'm not, you know, y'all know me. I spent this whole video roasting the admission process and the white wealthy people, but there are people who take advantage of affirmative action too, and I'm going to acknowledge that right now. I think it happens on a much lower scale, and I think it happens less frequently than people empowering people with money. I don't know if statistically if that's true, but that's how I feel. Like, there was a charter school in Kansas, I think. Don't quote me on it, but basically like the principal and his wife like were falsifying the grades of their students and making their students write personal statements about hardships that they never even had, just so that they could get into these elite schools, because they know that elite schools love to eat up that kind of story where you're poor, you're black, like, you know, everything, like all obstacles are set before you, but somehow, some way you rise above and you get good grades and you work so hard. And like, that is a story, that is a true story for a lot of people, but for some people that's not. And the principal and his wife knew that they could take that story and use it to their advantage and use it to make their students stand out more. And I think that's faulty as well, and I don't think that should happen. But I wanted to acknowledge that too, so that way no one can say that like, oh, I was just only highlighting what like wealthy white people did and not highlighting that like there are people of color and like, you know, public schools and stuff who do the same thing, just in a different way. So I'm acknowledging that now, but I don't think it happens as much. Or I can't speak for anyone, I don't think the intention behind it is good either, but I can understand, because it's already hard for a person of color to get into an elite school, period. And you have to make something special about yourself, to be honest, to get in. And like, I don't want to get, you know, too riled up or whatever, but I just wanted to kind of talk about the situation and give you guys my opinions and my feelings about it, and, you know, kind of open up the conversation. I really want to know what you guys think about it and like how you guys reacted when you first heard the story. So comment below, let me know. Post a lot of links to the news articles that I've read regarding the whole college admission scam, as well as this like charter school that I'm talking about too. So take a look at those and read more information about it. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you guys in another one.